myself.
Sorry.
Okay. I will excuse myself for last week, and I thank you for your patience about that. These last 2 weeks have been extremely, extremely busy, and by the grace of God, I've been able to get through them. And,
so tell us a little bit about what they do the first week at St. Vladimir's and St. Tikhon's.
Sure. Well, the first week, we have Monday and Tuesday Lenten retreat. So that involves, and so that way I get the words right, because I don't always have the right vernacular just yet. But so what that looks like is on Monday, Clean Monday, we start with a service from 8 to 10, Lenten Matins, and then we have our first talk. So we have a speaker that comes in. This year it was faculty, staff that did the talks, and that's from 11:30 to 12. And then we have service from 12 to 1. And then we have a second talk from 4 to 4:30. And then we have a 9th hour in Typica with Vespers from 4:30 to 5:30. Then we have Great Compline from 8 to 9:30. So that's Mondays. That's also Tuesdays, where we have 2 different talks throughout the day. We have 4 talks in total. So our Lenten retreat is Monday, Tuesdays. The services look the same in terms of their time. And then we have the 4 speakers. So it's full day of services, and as well as speakers. Obviously, we don't have class during those days, but then, the schedule continues with some of the Lenten services on Wednesday. Well, it's not retreat, but we still have daily matins. We have the 9th hour Typica. On Wednesdays, we have pre-sanctified liturgy that goes from 5 to 6:30. That was on Wednesday, the first 2 Wednesdays. And then we have Great Compline that goes from 8 to 9:30. And that happens Wednesday and then Thursday. And Fridays, it's not necessarily that we need to be at those services, but, that's a pretty significant schedule. And then Wednesday through Thursday, we still have classes, Wednesday and Thursday, in addition to the additional services. So that's what that first week looks like. It's pretty busy, but also very beautiful, a time that we get to spend a lot of time in service. It's just, again, it's physically, intense, but it is a beautiful, beautiful time.
Sophia, and if you just want to tell them about the silent, where no one can speak to one another, it's a time of silence.
Yeah, thank you for that. So the first, what's those first 2 days? So from Forgiveness Sunday, after our Forgiveness Sunday service, then the campus goes silent. So for 2 days, no one speaks, and we try to decrease our interaction socially and with everybody on campus and outside of campus. So we really try to get quiet, and it's a lot of time of prayer, and it's beautiful. Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome.
Well, I could ask you more questions to have you share a little more personally, but I don't want to take any more time from your presentation. So we're happy you got to go through that, and we all did, to one degree or another, had these changes that we had to adjust to, of less food, eating less often, not eating everything that we're used to, being in church more often. We had a clergy retreat this past week for clergy families, and it just these experiences are so necessary, and this is the time to have them, during as we prepare ourselves all together for approaching the most important events in our lives, and that is the events of the Lord's passion, death, and resurrection. So
Absolutely. It's a beautiful time. I wish I could. Ooh, I'm echoing somewhere. I don't know where that is. I will say that this past week was hybrid, well, reading week on campus. And so during reading week, some of us have hybrid courses. And basically throughout the semester, we do most of our work online. And then if you have a hybrid course, you do that work online, and then you get on, then you get a full week of classes, basically all day. So you have a morning session, 8:45 to 12, and then 6:15 to 9 p.m. And so a couple of days in there, you just have one session. But I took bioethics, which was a really interesting, very interesting class. And I was able to give a marriage and sexuality presentation in that class. And I used some of the material that I shared here, especially from our first session. So that was really, really nice to be able to do, and really talk about some of the ethical issues that the church might face and priests might interact with, especially around sexuality. So that was really interesting. So hopefully maybe sometime we'll be able to have some of that discussion as well. So all right.
Before we let you lead us through, I would like to just take a quick poll. How many people were able to read the material? Either session, let's do first just a raising of hands of session 5, the session on communication, listening and being heard. All right, we don't have everybody here. How many people were able to read the session 6, packing for the journey?
Half
All
of
right,
it.
so some have looked ahead. Others, this is going to be kind of new material for them tonight. All right, take it away, Sophia.
I'm sorry, I don't know what I just did, and now I'm echoing. Please hold. Sorry.
Sophia, there's a question in the chat box. I'm not sure if yourself or Father Patrides would like to look at the question.
The question was, did you go through all the slides on section 5 last week?
I did not, and we're gonna go through that here in a minute.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. Leave computer audio. There it is. Okay, there we are. Okay, whew. Okay, and now I want to share my screen. So, oh boy. So I ask for your patience as I have had my brain kind of wiped out from all this this week of classes. Oh boy, guys, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen and I'm not seeing.
You're going to share screen?
I'm trying to share screen, and it's probably because I am on the web browser and not in the app. Oh boy. Okay, I don't know what to do.
So what is it, something that you could like send to me or someone else that we could then share? What?
Yeah, maybe.
If you send it to me, Maria, I can share my screen and you can tell me when to advance to the next slide.
Can I open it? If I can open it from your computer, because I can share from.
Okay, give me 1 second. You could do whatever you need to do.
All right, I'm just gonna send it to myself here then. Give me 1 second. I apologize, everyone.
Can you click and drag a file into chat? Yeah, you can, right?
Can I?
I thought that we did that once. Let me see, I'll test it if I can.
Well, I think the easiest way is going to be is if I send it to myself and then.
Okay.
Wait, this.
Oh yeah, you can actually. Looks like you can do that.
I can share a file?
I think you can click and drag from your desktop into the chat.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to test it out, but this is not really relevant.
All right.
I don't know if you can see that.
Salted caramel dark chocolate.
Yes. I'm sorry, I don't mean to tempt everybody during Lent. I just, it works. So in case you wanted to try that, I'd be happy to.
I can download it into my computer.
Yeah.
Sally's baking addiction. It says, I don't have permission to save in this location.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know if that did anything.
All right, but here, I see what you just shared.
Okay.
Is it a link though, or?
No, it looks like
Yeah.
it's a path to a file, not an actual file. Or though, let me see if I.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me just. Treaties. Oops.
Don't worry. Don't worry. We are all learning more patience right now. And that's always a good lesson. And if it doesn't work, you'll just talk from your computer tonight, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's actually a really large file, and it's going to require for you to open Google Drive. Do you have Google Drive?
I do.
Oh, okay. I sent it to Father Patrides, but let me send it to you.
Well, I do.
Oh, okay.
You sent it.
It hasn't gone yet, though.
All right.
Thank you.
Sí, señor.
Okay.
Maybe we could just hear the presentation and have like a discussion, question, answer. Maybe the visual stuff might not be so necessary, because I noticed that it's already, well, no, it's not 3:06 for you guys, but.
No, you're right.
I am happy to move.
I mean,
and Father Patrice,
20,
I sent it to you, and if you can open it up, then you can.
Right. Let's give it one more try. If I can open it up, great.
Yeah.
And it is opening. So I will now.
Okay. So
can everybody see it? Is it on the screen right now or no? No, it's not yet on the screen. All right.
And if we can start on slide 20. Yeah, there it is. You might need to download it. So if you download it right there, that little download button next to the printing button on the
Down below.
no, on the top. You see the printer on the right there where it says open with, move to the right.
Hold on. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then it has the download, yeah. Okay.
I don't have the right app to open it.
Okay, well, it's a done deal. There we are. All right. Okay. All right, so let's just briefly thank you so much for your patience. I apologize that we can't get that open, but I will talk through it, and this is fine. And I apologize that we don't have a visual, but that's okay. We are at our possibly final session, and again, it's been a joy and a pleasure to be here and to get here to this point. We have learned a lot from each other, and I want to give you a recap. Session 1, we talked about how the church sees marriage. We talked about the importance of knowing the definition of marriage and how that grounds us every time that we face difficulties. It helps us to get back on track, to understand and know that we're working towards oneness and that it is for our salvation. We talked about the dangers along the way. We talked about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which kind of foretell the beginning of the end, so to speak, not necessarily, but that's what that is. And criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling. We talked about how those really help to take us off of the path of oneness. Session 3, we talked about how our family shapes the way we act. And we talked a little or I talked about my own personal genogram, and I kind of give you some examples on how to do that on your own. I'm curious, how many of you either had a conversation that was genogram-like, or how many of you actually did the genogram? Anyone? Or had a genogram-like conversation? Yes? Okay. Wonderful. Good. I wish we had time to I really want to ask, how did that go? But okay, so hopefully that really gave you some insight. And if you want to give a comment later about that, I would love to hear about that. And then session 4, which I called session 4.1, we identified our problem areas where we are. We also talked about 8 positive functions of conflict. We prioritize taking a pause to take a self-assessment, and how that can be helpful in conflict, when we're facing conflict, to help us understand what's really going on the inside of us, and to identify what we're feeling so that we can talk about what's really going on and what offended us, instead of speaking out of emotion and perhaps anger that can be hurtful and actually draw us toward the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, if you will. We also talked about steps to fair conflicting. Remember, we had Mrs. Mamalakis yesterday or last time correct us and say, steps to fair fighting. We don't really like that terminology, and she was right. Steps to fair conflicting. We talked about that, and we also talked about some do's and don'ts when we are in disagreement and working out our conflicts. So our second session, our 4.2 / session 5, we asked everyone to look at the self-examinations. And this is really where we are. This is where we left off. The self-examinations included problem areas. What could potentially be problem areas? So communication. We spend a lot of time in session 4 on communication, and the reason why I chose to do that is because that's kind of like the ground of everything. How we communicate with one another. If we set that up in a way, it's almost, it's like setting up, we have an appropriate understanding of what marriage is. It gives us that solid foundation. Communication in our interactions is that type of foundation. We can communicate well with one another. It helps us with some of the other areas because we're communicating in the most helpful way to help keep us on track and on that road to oneness. So I think that the question that I asked is, how would you describe? And we started out with communication. And we talked, I think, in great length about how some of you viewed your communication and some of the problem areas that you were able to identify. And some of you shared very openly, and we appreciated that. And so I wanted to move to the second area, and I'm going to move through these pretty quickly just for the sake of time. But I just wanted to see, and maybe the better way to do this is maybe to get, for those of you who were actually able to look at the assessments, which again included communication, problem solving, finances, parenting, sexuality, in-laws, inter-Christian challenges, friends, personal time versus couple time, second marriage, some miscellaneous concerns, which if after doing that self-assessment, which ones were you able to identify outside of communication? Because we've spoken a lot about that, and we'll continue to speak about that. But I'm curious, which areas were the most problematic for you as a couple? And even for you as a person who is not married, which ones have you identified that are growing edges for you?
So just to go over them again, right? These, I'm showing them now from the Journey to Marriage book. Communication was the first one. Problem solving was the second. Finances, the third. Parenting, the fourth. Sexuality, the fifth. In-laws, the sixth. Inter-Christian challenges, the seventh. Friends, the eighth. And personal time versus couple time, the ninth. Second marriage, and miscellaneous concerns.
So who would like any of those that stuck out for you that you'd like to mention?
George is smiling, so we're going to call on George first.
I was not smiling. I'm kind of.
Not Georgia, George Ferrer.
Oh,
You're
No,
off the hook,
Georgia,
George.
Georgia.
You're off the hook. No, I didn't say Georgia, I said George.
What was the question? I wasn't listening. I'm sorry.
Of the 12 different areas, which would you say, and we're trying to choose another one besides communication, which would you say are areas that you and Angela want to work on more?
Well, that's what we were going through, cross-checking our list and stuff. Last time we did it, I was over in Germany, and we were disagreeing on the ones that we had picked.
No, we were not disagreeing. We were just reviewing and pointing
So,
out.
other than communication, which section's not communication? After question 12.
Well, I think here, that was this one.
That
I said. So I pointed out the concern about the spouse's silent treatment, which is under problem solving. And he said to me, he said to me that I'm the one who does the silent treatment. So that's why we were laughing.
all right.
Okay. And would you agree with that, Angela?
Oh, yeah. No, he's my silent partner for sure.
George, that was a little tongue in cheek from George.
I think for us too, the topic of parenting came up as a,
That's too late.
yeah, we answered on all of them, where it's too late at this point, unfortunately. But I think if we had had this discussion prior to kids, it would have been extremely beneficial.
40 years ago.
40 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, and if I just had it in my head. This is kind of a side conversation. Georgia, I just realized that you were with Stevie. You snuck in there. I didn't realize. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that. And so Angela, so the silent, so that's kind of stonewalling, right? That's something that we talked about, right? And this is a no judgment zone here. So we're not really judging because we all have been in a situation where we all have, made some decisions that have caused us to maybe get on that slippery slope a little bit. And so part of the reason why we're here is to remind ourselves to get back on, and we do that daily and moment by moment sometimes. And so anyway, what, do you want to share a little bit more about the silent treatment and how that works? How does that end up working within the two of you, or not working?
Well, I would say not working most of the time. I think I do the first three horsemen because of the fourth being the stonewalling, and sometimes I just feel like I have to talk to hear myself think out loud. Even to the point where I'll say something, and this is happening a lot more recently, I think. I'll say something and, couple of weeks later, I'm told that I never mentioned something, and I just kind of like, I feel very unheard. And I feel very frustrated. I'm using my I words, did you notice? But we kind of joke a lot about it now, and we try to overcome that. We are getting better, I have to say. What?
Would you agree with that?
So the silent treatment is not stonewalling, right? It's avoiding saying the wrong thing. So figure if I'm silent, I can't get in further trouble. But I guess that doesn't work either. Even though Marcy's mate was agreeing with me.
Go ahead, Sean. We want to hear. Thank you. Sean and Marcy have not been able to join us thus far, but they have followed, and I've shared the recordings with them, so they're very much still with us.
Oh, great.
And
Hi,
so
Marcy.
Sean and Marcy are catechumens in our church, and we're going to be brought in at Pascha.
Oh,
Sean,
wow.
so Sean, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying, well, she's like, yeah, that's what you say, you know, like, or, you know.
Well, okay, so to speak for Sean here, we have a lot of the same things where he wants to avoid and I push more, and then he will tell me the same exact thing you just said verbatim of, oh, you never said that, that never happened. And then it gets me more upset because I'm like, you weren't listening to me, or, you know, you just so easily forget what I had to say. So
Yeah, and what George said, like sometimes I feel like everything I say is the wrong thing, and like in the heat of the conversation, everything I'm saying is making it worse, you know. And whether that's because I'm saying what my emotional self wants to say or whatever, so I tend to be like, all right, I need to stop saying things. Like, let me talk to you when I'm calm again, so I don't keep saying the wrong thing, you know.
And the question is, do you go to calm down and then never come back? We were talking about that last time.
he's getting better at it.
Oh,
But
he is?
yeah, but for
Working
a
on
long time would not want to come back. And then when I would want to come back to it, would say, oh, you're continuing the argument. So it was very frustrating, but he's getting better at it.
Well, I always get the message is lost in the communication style, because obviously I start calmly, and then when I feel I'm not being heard, it gets more assertive. And so then, you know, George will point out to me where my communication method is not allowing him to hear what I'm saying, and that just adds more fuel to the fire. Because for me, you know, I feel like I've said it now probably, what, 10, 15 times or whatever. So yeah, my tone is there.
So then, Angela, you're thinking, oh, it's all my problem. And, you know, he's just telling me this has nothing to do with him. It only has to do with me, right?
Like the saying that
Marcy,
they won't
do you
listen.
go there too sometimes?
Can you clarify? So just feeling like
So-
alone in the.
Yeah, so if your husband, instead of really answering your what you're feeling and saying, is kind of instead telling you, well, your approach is wrong and that's keeping me from being able to answer.
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
it's just seems like the message that's coming across is you're the one with the problem, not me. And I'm saying that from my experience in my marriage, that very often I've put my wife in that position too.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, and it's the saying where they say they're not going to remember what you say, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. And so that kind of is the underlying message of, you know, your tone is bad or whatever.
Right, let's give
Yeah,
Sophia a chance to reply. We've been having our own
that's
conversation.
Okay. No, I'm fine. I just wanted to, I'm just, so where does that land now? So how do we resolve these issues, or do they always go unresolved? Or has there ever been a moment where you did it well?
I just want to say this series has helped us just kind of, and not to, I don't know, maybe help me as well, but just to, because I see him more than I see myself in some way, you know what I mean? You can pick out the flaws of the other more than you can pick out your own flaws, I guess. But it has helped, I can say it's helped Sean a lot to like face these things and put it on paper, and even going through that questionnaire has helped us discuss things and realize like these are actual issues, and that they're issues that a lot of people deal with, and it's okay to confront them. So it's helped us a lot. So thank you.
Right. So I'm curious, Marcy, what is your husband's name, sir? What is your name?
I'm Sean.
Sean, that's right. Sean and Marcy. I'm sorry. Okay. So I'm curious, did you guys ever go through or have any type of premarital counseling?
No.
Okay. So, I'm so grateful that you have joined us and are able to pick up some of these tools. And today, what we're gonna move towards is really, we talked about marriage as a journey, and being on the road to oneness. And being on that road to oneness, we need to pack for that journey. And to pack for that journey, we need to identify what might be some of the things that we need that are going to help us along the way. Now, for every situation, you might need something differently. But before we head there, I want to highlight, and again, communication is so huge, and what both you couples have mentioned are all around communication. We talked about, the silent treatment. We talked about, talking calmly, but then, getting to the place where I don't feel heard. And so then now I elevate my voice, or I become more aggressive, or, with my tone. And so then it shuts down the hearing. And so, all of this is around communication. And again, that's why I wanted to spend so much time there. So one of the things that Dr. Philip and Father Ioannidis,
right?
Okay, mentioned in their book is the importance about speaking toward oneness. So, and I'm not sure who said something towards this, but it's important that we are remembering, number one, the reason for our marriage. Again, that's why we stressed, the understanding of what our marriage is about, oneness, right? So we always look toward the other, to move toward the other, not away from the other. And, we mean that in the sense that, we're not going to make decisions in our communication. And first, before we behave in a way, we have to make a decision in our hearts and in our minds to move away from our spouses. And so speaking towards oneness looks like, I care about you and your world. I value your opinion. I value you and I love you. And because of that, I'm going to do what I need to do to move in that direction. Now, I realize that what I'm saying is pretty easy. It's pretty easy for me to say, but in the heat of the moment, Marcy and Angela, I understand, that it can be really challenging. And, that you really, and I'm sure that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but from your perspective, it is your love that's helping you to move you towards your spouse and want to hear from them and really want to feel heard and want some of the resolution that you seek. However, it's important that, we do that in a way that it is going to be respectful of the other person, and that it is the intention is not just coming from love, but it is also it's not from a reactive place of anger. And that's why I also mentioned that it's important to possibly take a moment to calm down. And I think I heard between one of you guys that you need to take some time, to think about it. But it's important that we make a contract, that we make an agreement as to how much time we will decide to come back in. I don't know if that just made sense what I just said, but to rephrase that, you need to agree how much time are we going to take a time out so that we can each calm down, or at least one of us needs to calm down, and then revisit the conversation. So, all of those actions are, speaking towards oneness, but there needs to be an agreement how we do that. And I'm probably going to go back and forth between session 5 and session 6. And session 6 talks about one of the things that should be in your backpack are ground rules. So ground rules in your backpack, that's basically the map that helps you to navigate your differences. So your differences, your difficulties, your disagreements that are obviously, they're just going to arise. I mean, we're imperfect humans and we're working towards salvation, and we're going to be working out those rough edges, in our marriages. That's what we're going to do. These ground rules help us to relate to one another, and only you can make those agreements. You can only set those ground rules for yourselves.
Sophia, can I share something for a minute?
Please, Georgia.
This is Georgia. Thank you so much. I just wanted to, before you got any further, you had just said a few minutes ago, have you ever had it work well? And I wanted to say that I love what you're saying about like having a contractor agreement about when we're coming back and having ground rules. I think one of the most important ground rules to have is how we'll talk and be with each other when we have the conversation. I feel like that's like before we can even talk about the other things, or even before we can talk about when we're going to come back and feel at peace to come back in 20 minutes, in an hour, in 3 hours, in 24 hours, to have a contract with how we talk to each other. I mean, because we actually have this from something else, and it's incredible. And if we made something like this for Orthodox couples across the country, I think it would go viral because it is so helpful. And it talks about, and anyway, I was just going to also say, focusing on ourselves. Like my spiritual father told us, buy the book, The Field, and read the chapter on patience. Start with that chapter. So we did it. And the chapter is incredible. And he talks about how the whole chapter isn't even that much about patience, but it's about focusing on ourselves. And I feel like when I started learning more to focus on myself and not what he is doing, because as long as I'm pointing the finger, but he, it's like blaming will never work. I've never found a time that blaming, criticizing, or shaming works 100% of the time, whether me on someone else or someone else on me. And learning to use I statements helps. And I'm sure these are all things that you're going to talk about. But I just wanted to say that even before the contract of, because right when I hear the contract of no matter what, I will come back in this amount of time, it starts to, I'm not as filled with, I want to be at peace, filled with peace at all times, but it's much easier for me to be comfortable to have that conversation if I know we're having these rules, such as even when the other person shares their point of view, to just be able to say, thank you for sharing, and let them have their truth and their understanding calmly, and then me to have mine, and to know that that'll be respected. And maybe there's another time where they're going to have to bring something up, but if we can start with just being able to let each other share and know that we both have our own realities and they may be extremely different, I think it's life-changing. Thank you for letting me share.
Sure, Georgia, thank you. Some really, really great nuggets, valuable things that Georgia shared. Some of those things, we have really, it's some of the things that we talked about. Matter of fact, Georgia, the steps to fair conflicting, we shared in there, the thing about reactivity, it being the enemy of constructive conflicting. And even before that, we talked about some essential do's and don'ts. I'm sorry, after that. And that, you know, some of what you shared was in there, but it's helpful to go back to that. And an agreement on how we're going to communicate is absolutely, absolutely important. And so thank you for sharing that, Georgia. Anybody have any thoughts? Any thoughts about what Georgia just shared? And how might that look in your own marriage?
Actually, sorry, it's Maria Corey. If I can please ask a question, because listening to Georgia and seeing her and her husband make me feel like they're such a perfect couple. So sometimes I want to not break the 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor, because my question is, and to everyone, to Father, to you, Sophia, what if you don't have a cooperative partner? What if you don't have someone that wants to agree on the ground rules? What if the other person feels he is always right? So like, how patient is someone supposed to be? How do you communicate? I'm like at a loss. You guys are talking about two people that cooperate together.
Sure, that's a great question. And thank you, Maria, for asking that. I'll share here just for a minute, and anybody else who has thoughts, please jump in. You know, I have another question. Is this other person, is the other couple Orthodox?
I'm actually talking about
Maria.
myself, my husband and I.
Okay.
Her husband
You know, I think, and
Palestinian Orthodox.
Oh, we're both Orthodox. He's born Orthodox. I'm born Orthodox. We're talking about two humans that are Orthodox, but he's very Middle Eastern,
I didn't
and
want to
very
make
old
it
fashioned, and the men are always right and the women are always wrong. And I'm growing up in a way that everything is my fault. When my children do something right, they are their father's son. And when they do something wrong, you better believe it, they are Maria's sons. And I'm very frustrated with this.
Sure. That sounds really, really hard, Maria. I'm sorry. That is hard. One of the things, and maybe I have further questions about that, and again, please, Father Patrides, or even, you know, whomever might have some insight. Is this something that you've ever talked to your priest about?
Oh yes, of course. I've taken my husband to see my spiritual father together, and I thought that it would help. So, hi. Sorry, it's time to brew beer. My son is up. Please excuse me. But he's a good boy because he's going to go brew the beer. So he is his father's son right now.
They have a brewery in Palestine, in Taipei. They have a brewery and a winery, which is just such a remarkable thing. I don't want to take us off on a tangent, that they're in a country where the area of Palestine is 90% Muslim, who at least supposedly don't drink alcohol, and yet they've been able to start and produce a beer and a wine that has gained renown in the world, is even carried here in the United States. So what the Koreans do is a remarkable thing for many people, especially for the people of their own town in Taipei. Maria, if I could just say one thing about you and Daoud, and that is that I know without a shadow of doubt that God brought the two of you together, and you are each other's salvation. And you have your spiritual father. One of the things that are mentioned in the list of things that you bring along with you, along with ground rules, is your priest. But another thing is forgiveness. And with Christ's help, as you continue to keep your focus on Christ, you will continue to grow in your ability to love him. And the greater that the greater your love for Daoud in the midst of the trials and struggles that you're having, the more that you invite him to love you, the more that you invite him, the more that the Holy Spirit, that is present and active in your lives because you do practice your faith as Orthodox Christians, will work and move in his heart. So don't despair and don't give up.
Yeah, I'm just like making a confession that after 43 years, I just feel I love my husband deeply, but I really hate his habits because we can't communicate, we can't agree on finances, we can't agree on anything. So help us God.
We will all be praying for you more, Maria.
Yeah, thank you. And me here in the most precious place in the world, I will keep you in my humble prayers. And I do hope all of you come and walk the footsteps of Christ. And even if I'm not here, I hope my children, Kanan, Elena, Constantine, are here to receive you in Taibe, which is the only Christian village left. So yeah, please, thank you for your prayers.
Can I share one thing and then ask a question? And I know I just shared, so I'll try to make this very brief. I just hope you know, Maria, that you're not alone. Whether whoever our husband is, even if our husband has written the book, or even if we've been married 40 years, or we all, I think, so much of the time across the board, like even Father Theodore, who is, I feel like one of the most mildest, loving, humble, faithful men we all know. And I say that by God's grace, Father Theodore. But even Father Theodore shared a few minutes ago that sometimes he looks at his wife and says, "You're the one with the problem." Now, I have to confess that I didn't really believe Father Theodore when he said that, because
what I actually said was, Georgia, that so when I comment on how my wife may be speaking towards me, or when I suggest that she's thinking or seeing something in a different way, that her perception is that I'm saying to her, "See, you're just the problem, it's not me."
Oh, that's her perception.
Yes,
Okay.
it's not that I've actually said to her, you're the problem here. You're the problem.
Okay, because I was going to say,
but it seems to her that that's what I'm saying, because instead of acknowledging the things that she would like me to acknowledge, I'm trying to suggest to her, or I'm approaching. She'll say, "Stop being my therapist. You're my husband right now." And Philip is your husband has actually helped me to respond as a husband and not as the priest. She's not my parishioner.
Okay.
So
that makes more sense now, that what you're saying. But if someone could get that feeling that it was their fault by Father Theodore, I think any woman out of 1,000 can get that feeling from any other human being in the world, if I'm making myself clear. And I know my husband doesn't want to make me feel that, but oftentimes I've felt that. I know I don't want to make him feel that. That's why I feel like all of the time it's let it begin with me, because when we try to think there, anyway, I feel like that makes me have even more compassion on myself and on my understanding and my husband and how he might see me, and just the whole concept of let it begin with me, and
Right.
going to confession and trying to work on my heart by God's grace, because as long as I just have that understanding that it's all because of me, then it's almost like I'm stuck and I can't make the change. And I'm not saying it very well. And I told you I was going to be brief, and that wasn't that brief, but thank you for letting me share.
Georgia, now I see what you're saying, because Father Theodore is like the only walking saint that I know. So now I get what you're saying. So if I got it.
Boy, oh boy, I wish Father Patrici's wife was here.
It is very good that my wife is not on the call right now.
She's with us in spirit,
She,
though.
she would be turning upside down, and she would be, you know, just, she'd be biting her tongue, but we are all broken. But you're absolutely right, Georgia. The only thing that we can do is work on our side of the street. But when we work on our side of the street, it invites our spouse, who is our neighbor on the other side of the street, to consider working on their side of the street.
Yeah, I like the thing that we've said before about our spouses being our mirror, the mirror, and that works in a good light as well. Father Patrici, as you just said, all we can do is work on our side of the street, and hopefully they will see the work that we're doing on ourselves, and so that they, it'll be a reflection, and hopefully that will be reflected back, as you exemplify that. It's not easy, and I like the direction where we're going, because one of the other things, as Father Patrici's mentioned, that we should have in our backpacks is forgiveness. And forgiveness is it's a choice to let go of the anger. It's a choice to let go of the resentment. It's a choice, while working through the problem, to get back. It helps us to get back on that road together, because, we have to remember that forgiveness is an obedience to God. It's something that we're doing out of obedience to Him. And in that, one of the other pieces that is important, vitally important, that we pack is the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit gives us the grace to be able, to do some of these things that feel so impossible, especially in the moments, and if we can take that minute and say, God, give me the grace to handle this as you would have me handle it. And, while it doesn't always, Holy Spirit whoosh in, as He did in Acts 2 and take over, it doesn't always happen that way, but we are partnering. We are making a choice. It has to be a choice, And again, forgiveness is difficult, but it is the beginning of the healing process. Even, moment by moment, situation by situation. Forgiveness, sometimes we expect to say, oh, I forgive you, and, that's it. I should be over being angry, over being, and no, forgiveness is a process. It's a journey. It's something that we choose to do. And it's a process that includes empathy and humility and remorse and apologizing, and but the biggest thing is working to letting it go. I'm not sure how this is going to sound, but it's primarily for us and for our salvation, right? Because when we don't forgive, and the anger and the resentment, they sit and they settle. I know that when I've ever struggled with unforgiveness, it started to change me from the inside out. Like it does something, and so as difficult as it is, and we can go from, and it's a spectrum of minor offenses to the most terrible thing, and however, the process of forgiveness is still, it's a choice, and it is a process. It is a journey. It is a decision that we need to make. And I believe that by the grace of God, and as we know, that the Holy Spirit will give us what we need to be able to walk that out. Any thoughts about forgiveness?
Go ahead, Angel.
So, and this actually, I hope will help Maria as well, but the forgiveness part, I know for me, there's an element of having to forgive myself. And if I'm working on myself and changing things about myself, I struggle with the shame and guilt that is associated with forgiveness for myself. And I think Father Theodore has told me before that, you know, who do I think I am? If God has forgiven me already, you know, how come I can't forgive myself? So I always hold on to that because it kind of humbles me and helps me put things into perspective. But I think just in the sense of trying to communicate to my husband and others, I often forget about not taking that stonewalling or whatever personally. And that's very hard to then say, okay, I need to let that go and that it's okay. And that I don't have, you know, looking at another couple, for example, or another family with their kids and, you know, being like, well, why can't it be like that? It's very hard.
Yeah, that's one of the great blessings that clergy and probably therapists have as well. I imagine you would agree, Sophia, in your work in counseling couples is we just get to see so clearly how the struggles that we have are the struggles that everyone has. And that, you know, just like that statistic in the beginning of the Journey of Marriage book, that successful marriages struggle with 9 areas. The people struggle with it. People who end up in divorce have 9 areas of struggle. The difference was that the successful marriages work through all of the struggles. We all have struggles because we're all broken. Maybe some of us bring more baggage into our marriage, but the hidden blessing is that there's made a greater opportunity for acquiring even more of the grace of God through being in a position to forgive more, to love more.
I think also around, I'm sorry, Nisia, I'm just gonna say one thing really quick. Oh, the other thing around forgiveness that kind of is popping up for me is, sometimes we think, and I said forgiveness is a journey and it's a process, but I think it's okay, for someone to be honest and say, I'm not ready to forgive, to just give that a voice and allow your spouse to hear, the brokenness, I think still takes a level of humility, and it is really moving toward them because you're being vulnerable and honest about where you are and sharing that instead of saying, I'm sorry?
Go ahead, I'll let you finish.
Oh, sorry. Instead of, I can't forgive you, I'm not going to forgive you. Really what you're saying is, I'm struggling to forgive you. In this moment, I'm not ready to forgive you. And, so, even saying it that way is really moving toward them because you're being honest. Anyway, Father Patrice, please.
Yeah, no, exactly. I just want to echo what you're saying, that is always that sharing what we're going through is a turning towards the other person. Even it says, I'm very angry at you right now. I'm very hurt. I'm feeling very hurt right now by what you did or what you didn't do, is actually a step towards the other person. And it opens lines of communication. So often we get tripped up by thinking, because I'm speaking in anger, I'm communicating to the other person that I'm angry, when really, if I'm saying things with anger, I'm hurting the chance of their really hearing, because I'm attacking. My words are now causing pain to them because they're set in anger. I'm driving them away. Especially with parents with children, when we speak in anger towards our children, I don't know if it's ever effective, because it's what the child is just hearing is, I'm bad. I did something wrong. There's something wrong with me. I don't feel secure anymore because my dad, who is still, or my mom, who is still, I'm so dependent upon, doesn't doesn't feel good about me right now. So by sharing our emotions, by being able to name and share our emotions, we are laying the groundwork for ultimately, like you said, Sophia, then being able to let it go. It's confession. We're just confessing to God in front of our spouse, you know.
You know, one thing I've learned that with so many different things, not only forgiveness, I can't do it, but God can. And I heard there's this beautiful dance, you know, that are also in the 12-step program, which is the 12 steps are kind of like a mini ladder of divine ascent. But I've heard it, you know, 1, 2, and 3. I can't, God can, I will let him. I can't, God can, I will let him. And when you go around the circle for the forgiveness vespers, a lot of the time people will say, you know, you say, forgive me for anything I've ever done to hurt you or offend you. And the other person says, God forgives, pray for me. So if in the moment I can't say, I forgive you, although I think even to say, well, okay, that we're talking about asking for forgiveness, or no, we're talking about what was, Sophia, I think you were saying, even if you say, I can't ask for forgiveness right now, is that what you were saying? Because I'm so, because I've heard forgiveness is almost more for us than it even is for them. And it's not saying that what the other person did is okay, but it's almost like letting it go and saying, I'm going to give this to God and God's going to work it out because I can't. And I heard that there was a monk who went to his elder and said, I absolutely cannot forgive this person. And the elder said, you must, this is what God taught. And he kept on saying, I can't. And I think I'm going to have to even take him to court. And so anyway, the elder said, okay, well, let's end in prayer today. And so he's prayed the Our Father with him. But when he got to that part, he said, do not forgive us our trespasses as we do not forget. And he was like, you know, Father, you're praying this wrong. And he said, no, that's the way that we will pray this prayer from now on, because you're not ready to forgive. So anyway, I just feel like that's powerful.
I've used this saying a lot, and maybe you all have heard it, but I'll say it, maybe it's useful for someone. You know, unforgiveness is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die. And so, you know, if that helps in your brain to kind of understand that holding back forgiveness, you know, is actually something that you make a choice for yourself, because it is something that will settle in. And I'm saying this again, I say this from a place of experience and understanding that, and I'm sure that, you know, some of us have been there too, how it just really is a heaviness in your heart and your spirit, your soul, your mind, that, you know, for me, I felt like, you know, a different person, you know, and holding that. So it is something that, yes, you do out of obedience to God, and you do it to move towards the other person. It is something that you do for yourself. Stevie, did you want to say something?
Can I say something? I mean, it's, if you've been in a long-term relationship, whether it's with an adult child or a spouse that you've been married to for a long time, and I mean, there are patterns that are repeated over and over and over and over and over. So you can say, yeah, I forgive you, but then it happens again. And it's like, I know we're supposed to forgive people 70 times 7, but it's like, you know, it's sometimes so hard when you know it's going to happen again and again and again and again and again. And like, you can't change it. Yeah. You can't change the pattern that happens.
Connie?
You know what I'm saying?
Connie?
Yeah.
That, you know, what the evil one wants us to do is to try to be thinking about the future or about the past, as opposed to living in the present. So the thought, this is going to continue, this is not going to stop,
right,
doesn't help us in that moment to let it go for that moment, to forgive again in that time, because we really don't know. But we do know this much: it won't be forever, because this life isn't forever. This life is momentary. But forgiving now is what opens us up to that eternal forgiveness of God, that eternal love and mercy of God. So there's a kind of rethinking to answer that thought, oh, this person is never going to change, to answer that thought with, that's okay. They might not, but I can, each moment, what I can't do on my own, with God I can do. And that is to forgive them for what happened today, forgive them for what they just said and did, because I know that they're not going to live forever. And I know they really need my forgiveness. A long, long time ago, Georgia said something to me, and I've used it again and again and again. Do you remember, Georgia? Anything that somebody does is one of two things. Either it's an expression of love or it's a cry for help. And so that person that continually keeps doing the same thing and over again, we need to hear what they're saying, hear even what they're doing, as Christ did on the cross for those that were crucifying him. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. This person is actually crying out for help because they are stuck. They are stuck. I can't change them, but with your strength, I can forgive them, and that you can use that to possibly help them.
Thank you. I had a question for Georgia also. That book you said you were reading, the chapter on patience, what book was that?
It was called The Field by Saint Ignatius Briankononov. It's incredible.
The Field. Okay, thank you.
I know Nisia had her hand up a long time ago.
Did.
Sorry, I was just typing in the name of that book, The Field by
Saint Ignatius Briankononov.
Okay, I found it. I just want to make sure I put that on my, thanks. No, I just wanted to say that I feel like I would fail at marriage. I honestly, I had all of the problems in these lists in my dating, let alone marriage. And Maria, I fell in love with a Middle Eastern man and he was never wrong. That's all I can say. He was never wrong. I wanted to marry him in the church. And it was always my fault. Unbelievable. But
yes, I would like that. Thank you for confirming that.
He was not an Orthodox Christian, but it was a very serious cultural difference. So I understand, but I think that it's wonderful that obviously that you and your husband are both Orthodox Christian. I feel like had that been there,
I don't know how much that helps. I don't know how much that helps.
Yeah, I just know how I just felt in a way, I almost felt like emotionally abused by it, but just because it was always me and I was always apologizing and feeling like I had to compromise everything to accommodate his reasoning. But anyway, it is different though, because he didn't have the Holy Spirit, and it was very different. So I think that hearing you and your husband and you were married in the church, you have that, and temptation comes into marriage, with argument in the form of argument. And, if two people are so stalemated, so,
yeah,
you are blessed.
Thank you for saying this. This is my problem exactly, that my husband has the Holy Spirit. You're so brilliant. He's so smart. It's just that I don't want to be feeling stupid next to him. He will not marry a stupid woman. That makes me feel better, that he had to marry a smart woman because that's the only woman he would marry, because sometimes I'm beating on myself too much. So thank you very much for sharing that.
I don't think love has anything to do with, I don't know, not the kind of intelligence that you're talking about. I think love transcends all of that. And all the stuff
But
that
right
comes
now, I
with it.
just wanted to tell you something, just a little confession. My son woke up. He's 34 years old. My husband made him give up his job in Boston, #1 paying job. He's a pharmacist, doctor of pharmacy. So here he is under occupation, under difficult conditions, behind a wall, needs a permit for everything. Our home is so big, it's freezing cold. He goes from his room, which is warmed outside. It's not that we don't have central heat. We do have central heat. We just don't put it on. I cannot believe this child came to the point he has to listen to his father. I'm very proud of him. He woke up to go brew the beer, but that's not really what I want for my son. I feel our children have a right to live their dreams, just like my husband lived his dreams. I'm frustrated because
Maria,
I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
may I share a story? Have you ever heard the story of Evloios and the invalid?
Maybe, but I can't remember it now.
It's from the writings of the Desert Fathers. So there was a man named Evloios who was, he lived in Alexandria, and he decided he felt a real calling to give his life to God. And so he decided he would become a monastic. And on his way out of Alexandria, he came across an invalid, a person who could not use his legs or his arms. And he would be carried every day into the street, and people would put money in a cup, and that's how he could have money that others would, in taking care of him, would provide him necessary food. But that's what his life was just as a beggar in the streets. And Evloios, passing by him, felt such great compassion towards him and love and a desire to serve him that he decided that would be his askesis, his caring for this invalid. So he actually picked the invalid up, brought him to his own home, and cared for him in his home. At first, the invalid was very grateful, but he still wanted to live a monastic life, so he wouldn't eat meat, and he prayed at all the appropriate times. But eventually, the invalid became less and less grateful and more bitter, resentful, and he began accusing Evloios of even doing this to keep the money, that people were giving him money, but he was keeping it for himself, and all kinds of crazy things he was saying. It was getting so hard for Evloios that he went to his friends and he says, I don't know what to do now. I just want to put him back on the street. I just want to dump him. And they said, the great one still lives, and the great one was Saint Anthony the Great. Why don't you go and ask him? So he puts the invalid in a wheelbarrow and he goes out into the desert, and he finally arrives at St. Anthony's Skeet, and it's packed with people, and it's nighttime. There's all these people that are waiting, and the saint has been somewhere else. So all these people are waiting and hoping to see the saint, and it's already at night. And the two of them just joined that crowd. Finally, they hear the saint is coming. The saint is coming. The Holy One is coming. And as he's coming closer, all of a sudden, Evloios hears someone calling his name, Evloios, Evloios, and he thinks, who could that be? And as he gets closer, he sees that it is Saint Anthony calling Evloios, but he says he can't be talking to me. He doesn't know me. And then he says, Evloios of Alexandria, and he says, I'm from Alexandria. I'm Evloios. So the saint pulls him into the middle of this huge crowd of people, and he has him tell the entire story of why he's there and what was his reason for bringing him there. And he tells everything just as it happened. And then the saint turns to the invalid and says, you wicked man, this person has done so much for you, and you've shown such ingratitude. You need to forgive him, and you need to be grateful with the time that you have left in this life for what he's doing for you. And then he turned to Evloios and he says, and you're ready to dump him on the street, but if you do that, somebody else is going to come along and he's going to pick him up, and he's going to get all the blessings in heaven. that that were for you, but you dumped him. And he said, you know why this is happening? Because both of you only have a short time to live. And when death comes for you, I'm telling you, the both of you need to be together. You have to stay together. 39 days later, the invalid dies. And on the 40th day of Loyos.
Oh, wow.
So we don't know why God has joined us to that person whom he's joined us to, but we do know that God can use everything for our salvation. And the struggles that we have here turn into the blessings that we receive there. We just need to raise our thoughts and our minds and our focus to Christ. And don't worry about our spouse.
Amen.
Focus on being faithful to Christ. And he will make our spouse and does make our spouse our greatest blessing.
That helps me a lot, Father Theodore. Thank you. Plus, it's too expensive for the husband to dump me at this point in life. So I appreciate everything you've said. It really helps me a lot. Thank you.
Oh, Maria, that was funny.
No, but it's such a fact in my situation, if you know me.
That was funny. Well, lastly, I think that this is really good to finish up with what we need to pack in our backpacks. And Father Patritti said this before, but it is a priest. And I mean, we just had a beautiful example of the wisdom that Father Patritti shared. And, you know, even his vulnerability to share, you know, his own, you know, situations in his marriage and being open and saying, I'm not perfect either. I'm working on this journey to oneness too. And, you know, even having that, you know, a priest that will also do that is such a beautiful gift to us. And so packing for our journey, a priest in our backpacks is extremely valuable and important to have a Father Patrides, if not Father Patrides, your spiritual father. I would also add to that list a therapist. You know, I am not of the school of thought that you need to have a therapist for life. I don't necessarily believe that. Some people do believe that. Some therapists do believe that, and that's okay. For me, I think that, you know, there are times in our lives where we have significant issues that, you know, no matter what we have done to try to resolve the issue, we need a third party, to involve a third party to help us, because sometimes there is that place where we're both stuck and we're not seeing, and for whatever reason, you know, and to get a third party involved, primarily a priest, and a priest will say, hey, maybe you do need to see a therapist and get you know, somebody else involved in addition to his support. But you know, I believe that, you know, getting a therapist involved every so often when you have those significant moments where you're at a standstill. So I say that to say that sometimes it can be intimidating saying, well, get a therapist involved. And for some, you know, one of the partners that might be like, well, I don't want to be going to a therapist for, you know, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. But again, it's additional support, a third party to help see from an unbiased perspective, and also to give you some more tools to put in your backpack that you may not have owned before, or maybe to help you identify some of the tools. As I mentioned before, I asked one of you guys before, what has worked well before in the past? And sometimes because we get in the thick of our lives that we forget some of the things that we have in our backpack, some of the tools that we have used before, to pull them out and say, oh yeah, we tried this before and it did help and it did work. And sometimes involving a third party just to help us identify, we do have the things that we need to be able to resolve this, and it helps to shine a light on that. So, Any thoughts on that?
If I can just add one thing to it, Sophia, Father Thomas Hopko had said the role of a spiritual father is to make himself obsolete. You know, it's not about him, it's about his being able to really join the hands of the couple to Christ. So he's not needed. So they've learned how to dance the dance the right way. It really, in a similar way, we can say that, you know, therapists, somebody once told me that we should look at therapists like car mechanics, you know, keep going to them if they keep being able to fix the engine and fix something. But if they're not fixing anything, if it's not helping, we don't have to stick with them. You know, you just find another mechanic. And there are some that are more have greater insight, or that somehow we can connect with a little bit more fully, but that making of ourselves vulnerable to another person and opening up to another person is invites God's grace, invites God into that circumstance. And there are therapists out there that are truly blessed to be able to do that.
And I do want to add to that, you know, not to be afraid, you know, and to move on to the next one. You know, I believe that therapists have to be a good fit. They have to be a good fit. And, you know, I mean, it can't be the thing that we make the reason why we're not going to therapy. It shouldn't be anyway. You know, well, I don't like this one, I don't like that one. Is it really about the therapist? Would be my question in that point. But it is important to find a therapist that's a good fit for the two of you. Not somebody who is that you dislike because they're challenging you, but, you know, because maybe personality wise, or perhaps, just not a good fit, you know, whichever way it is. So, you know, I wanted to say that because a lot of times we get to a place where we do need some outside support, and we run from that support because we have some false ideas about what therapy might look like and might be. So I encourage you to you know, not be afraid of touching base with a therapist if that is something that you feel like you need. Again, with the guidance of your spiritual father.
There do exist lists of recommended therapists that at least our archdiocese has, okay, that clergy are able to access where they live, what their particular focus and concentration is on, and so forth. So we have people that are recommended. We can recommend, and it's not necessarily because they're Orthodox Christian, but they come recommended. They come. They're kind of vetted before they get on that list. So. Well, Sophia, it's been a great ride.
It has.
Kind of sorry to see it end, but maybe we'll just keep doing other things with you in the future. And you know, as your school and as your relationship and as your family and as everything else allows, whenever you want to join us again for our Wednesday night studies with Cornelius, we're always blessed to have you guys.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I pray for all of your marriages and for your future marriages, Nicia.
May it be blessed.
May it be blessed.
Thank you so much.
You know, I would encourage you not to lose hope. You know, one of the things that we mentioned early on in one of the early sessions was, you know, and Father Bertrudius mentioned it today, that everybody has problems. It's just how you manage them, you know. And if you can get somebody who's willing to manage with you, you know, imperfections are going to be there, issues are going to be there, you know, but if you can get somebody who's willing to work it out with you, you know, that's what you need. And so, thank you guys It's been.
And my son always says, first world problems are always better to have, because most people in America, that's what we have, is first world problems. So
Well,
Yeah.
that's a perspective that we need to keep for sure.
Thank you, everybody. I do need to get home to my wife now. And
oh, I
our
thought you were
daughter
going to talk to
Leslie.
me a little longer, Father Theodore. Gosh, that's sad. I'm
I
so
do
sad.
want Sean and Marcy to stay on just for a second at the end, but we're going to say a closing prayer and a good finish of your second week of Great Lent to everybody. And we'll be in touch when the next study is going to start again. Thank
I
you,
invite you
Marshall,
to
for
have the
joining us.
conference room. I invite you to have the conference room for free at the Taiba Golden Hotel. So you'd bring Sophia and come have a beautiful Bible study here.
One day we're going to do it, Maria. We're going to do it from Palestine, the place where Jesus found rest and refreshment after raising Lazarus from the dead, before he went into Jerusalem for his triumphant entry and his passion. That's the ancient city of Ephraim, which is Maria's home now, the city of Taipei.
A great place for clergy couples to retreat at, by the way.
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much, Maria. I hope to take you up on that for one day.
Yes, I hope you will come to Taiba. A great place for starting church leaders to retreat too before their mission.
I'm going to sing a hymn from the marriage service and we'll end with this. Glory to thee, O Christ our God. The apostles cry, the martyrs rejoice at the preaching of the consubstantial Trinity. Lord, we thank you for our time together. We ask that you bless our marriage, our future marriages, that they may indeed be a preaching of your life, in your love, and that your kingdom may be experienced in and through the midst of our marriages and our relationship and our family. May we all find our way from this life into your heavenly kingdom with our spouses, for your holy now and always, to the ages of ages. Amen.
Amen. Good night, everyone.
Amen. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night. Thank you so much, everyone. Maria, take care.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank
Bye
you
for everybody.
Theodore.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so
Enjoy your time together, Georgia. and
Thank
Steve.
you.
Thank you.
Bye
I'm
bye, my beloved Angela.
I
sending
really
love
enjoyed
to
our
all
time
folks.
together. Thanks.
May the rest of the